Everyone, thank you for joining us. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes for everyone to join us. While we wait, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you're from and your organization so we get to know where people are calling in from. And we'll start in just a couple of minutes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're calling in from. Thank you for joining us. Please state your organization name and country in the chat, and we'll get started here in just 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Mesme, if you can move to the next slide. Thank you all for introducing yourselves in the chat. Please continue to do so throughout the beginning of today's webinar. Throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A box to ask questions and the chat box for answering any questions asked by the presenter. We'll be monitoring the Q&A box throughout the webinar, so no need to wait to ask your questions for the Q&A stops. Feel free to ask whenever they come up, and we'll make sure those questions get answered for you. The presentation for today's webinar, as well as the recording of today's webinar, will be available on the ASAP Resources website starting this afternoon. So please look out for that for the recording and the presentation. We're coming to you today from the ASAP 2 team. The purpose of ASAP 2 is to rapidly prepare local partners to have the capabilities and resources to serve as prime partners for USAID/PEPFAR programming in compliance with USAID and PEPFAR procedures. We have 2 strategic objectives at ASAP 2. The first is to strengthen local partners as they transition to receive PEPFAR funding as a USAID prime partner to comply with regulations. And the second is to prepare local partners to directly manage, implement, and monitor PEPFAR programming while maintaining consistent PEPFAR program achievement and quality. Next slide, please. ASAP 2 has supported 18 total countries, all of them listed here, as well as some additional countries supported during ASAP 1. And I see many of you are calling in from several of these countries, so thank you for joining us this morning. Next slide. Some key results from both ASAP 1 and 2. ASAP has supported 126 local organizations in 18 different countries, as I mentioned. 113 of those organizations have been local partner organizations, and 13 have been local government partners. Next slide. As I mentioned previously, we have ASAP and USAID have broadcasted 105 different webinars for more than 22,000 attendees in 76 different countries. Many of these are still available for viewing on our ASAP Resources website, and I'll send that link in the chat shortly. Many of our webinars are available in 3 different languages, and French, English, and Portuguese. So whichever language is preferable to you. Of course, you're here for an English webinar, so there are many, many different webinars available for you to both download the slides and watch recordings. Next slide, please. We have some upcoming webinars. These include a second this week presented by Doug Franke, including that is titled Non-US Local Partners Mandatory and Required as Applicable Standard Provisions. We have some leadership and governance sessions, as well as organizational capacity and compliance assessment, sustainability, and several others. So please, if you are not already registered and would like to attend these, please feel free to register. And I will also send a link where you can find the registration links. Next slide, please. Today we have an excellent presentation by Mesmi Abogo. Mesmi is a capacity advisor for us on the ASAP2 team and is here to present an excellent presentation. So Mesmi, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. Today we will going to discuss more how to institutionalize good practice for human resources. But let's speak more about our organization. Most of our organizations have infrastructure building with appropriate project objective targets that are really set, and program approach and budget available. And we will sometimes concentrate on how to spend the budget that have been approved and deliver the program with high quality standard and to sustain the effort organizations are making. But the question we should always have to keep in mind is, do we have the right staff at the right position at the right time? These staff are well trained. Do we have appropriate orientation to those staff, and how we keep them motivated and involved? So today we will be able to discuss this through these 4 components of the presentation, but I will really want to say that it is possible, and yes, we can make people make the organization. Why this is important? Because it's critical to manage effectively people we work with them, to maintain productivity and success of our organization, and also to bring in people, including volunteers that are with appropriate skill and experience. And it's critical that if organization keep developing people, skill when even they have been onboarded. But also it is something that we want to encourage is to make sure that regardless people you engage, they have appropriate skill to deliver the work that we want them to really develop. And it's something that we in the market, we look at people that really, are engaged to work, but sometimes we have people with not 100% skill that we want them to do. So it's critical for us, I believe, to keep seeing what are the gaps in terms of training and how do we address that. So we usually have human resources policy and procedure in our organization. But let's have a look on the content of our policy, and how do we, why do we need to improve the content? Because the content has to do with recruitment, background screening policy, employment references, new employee orientation. How do we open equal employment opportunity and employee classification, as well as the period they are working and the people we are praised. And it's also really important to keep documenting the bonus, the severance and separation process that we want to have in our organization. And how do we monitor attendance and punctuality relationship to ensure that people really are present, not at work, but are doing the work during the time they have been paid for. but also the relationship within working place, and to create a kind of, how do we create a working environment that help people to produce and to deliver the work that we want them to do. One of the professional conduct that we put in place: confidentiality, code of conduct, ethic code, etc. And how do we make sure that we capture leaves on timesheet in the organization? This is a critical thing that we want to really encourage the organization to keep documenting this in their HR policy and procedure. Let's have a look on this related to what are the major human resources risk categories that we have in our organization. ASA had the opportunity to go to some of these, and the top 10 of local partner risk category in terms of human resources management are mostly related to reference and salary check. It's something that is critical. We need to know before we offer somebody a contract to ensure that we are really have a background check of this staff, and to ensure that the salary check have been done. One of the professional development opportunity we offer, this is a serious gap that we have in the organization. And keep in mind that this is something that will keep you maintaining your staff and key staff in your organization. The payroll change is important, but sometimes it has to be done based on your internal regulation and policy in your organization, as well as the personal appraisal. It's critical that the board also appraise the executive director of performance. It's important that the executive director appraise the chief of party performance. It's important that this is something, it's something that we need to build as a culture, appraising people performance in their work, help people to build themselves and to identify their gaps. And also, it's really important for us to have a practice that keep people oriented. When you engage somebody in your organization, make sure that you engage somebody, and also you identify where is the training need, but also reiterate and come back to the job description. The position have been set to fill something very specific, but then we need to know do the staff really understand what is expected from him? Do we know that this staff, understand what they need, what we are expecting? Do we have appropriate skill? What are the additional resources we as an organization we can provide to him to be able to deliver the work that we want him to do? This is a critical step in the organization, and this has to be signed off by both parties to make sure that in case we have to go to performance improvement and termination of process of this staff, we need to document and ensure that we have appropriate resources, document to terminate when it has to do with people who are not really willing to do the work that we want them to do. And it's important that in HR we keep appropriate recording and filing of all the recruitment process, especially not especially for key staff. Human resources experts need to keep the appropriate documentation for each position. This is very, very important. It's part of the audit process. I know you people are familiar with that, but let's have this address as well. And also, how do we do vacancy? This is another top risk area. How do we our vacancies open for everybody? Do we allow people to apply? How people apply for any job vacancy that we launch in our organization? Do we have a travel policy and procedure? This is critical because we have to do with this is a high risk area of human resources, because we know that this is something that we will see a lot of people in the organization be engaged for travel in country, out of country. But how this is really documented? Who is taking the lead to approve the travel authorization? And now, what are the roles and responsibility? Do we have insurance that cover people during the trip? And then how, after the trip, do we have appropriate report that have been submitted and archived to document the expenses related to this trip. And now we need to know also that here, in terms of travel policy and procedure, we need to document it, but make sure that at all level, including driver, everybody needs to inform. Everybody needs to commit to engage himself in this policy, travel policy and procedure. And last but not the least, but how do we manage staff time? How do we do that? How do our policy? This is a high risk area of human resources also. How do we manage staff time? How do we document to ensure that people are doing the right thing at the right time and they are really at work, not doing, I mean, in terms of present, but they are delivered based on the scope of work that they have been engaged and oriented. And we want to make sure that also the organization, and this is the last risk area, how do the organization remain attractive? How do we attract people in the organization? I think these are the top 10 risk category for local partner. And this is where here it's highlighted in red. I just decided to share with you basically the top 10. But the rest is still something that you can also have a look and make sure that in your organization, you'll be able to navigate and see whether it's applicable for you. I mean, and have an idea of this. So let's go to some of the organization that ASAP team advisor in country have been noticed since some time. We observe that organizations do not have a comprehensive policy procedure in place, and sometimes without appropriate tools. Tools that we evaluate an executive director is the same tools that we use to evaluate, an M&E or advise, M&E junior staff. This is not something that doesn't work like that. I mean, we need to be more specific. And sometimes some organizations do not have human resources personnel really trained for that domain, and unfortunately have been engaged as HR. And unfortunately, this has to be something that you can have. I think that here the third observation is that many organizations, have challenges to be very attractive and to retain key staff members. It's a serious concern that we observe as ASAP across country, and especially when we have a lot of local partners that are now prime. But at least we will discuss this further. So we also wanted to, basically to keep alert the leadership and HR team that you are present here. And thank you for joining us today. Is that some basic element are missing in the policy? Sometimes you don't have standard job description that's there. Salary, community salary or benefit structure are missing. Staff development are not really documented. Annual performance evaluation not even included in this policy. And this is serious risk, as I highlighted before. This is a risk area that really will need to be captured in your organization. And unfortunately, this may be the reason why sometimes you have people who are not really part of staying in the organization for long. How can we how can we make other people, the organization, remain attractive and keeping staff engaged? I think this is something very, very specific and very, very important. We need to treat our staff with respect, and we need to be, to give opportunity to each and everyone. And I think it's very important to treat people fairly. Is very, very important. But to as a manager, it's important to have an open door policy that help people to express themselves also. But it's important to remain transparent and to offer fair compensation within the team. It's critical when you have sometime in some contract, you have contract that are differ based on the category. It's not fair. So we need to make sure that we offer fair compensation within the staff, but also keep in mind that we need to give our staff learning opportunity and to grow in their career. But also, and very important, hierarchy need to recognize and celebrate effort and success that people working in the organization are delivering, and make sure that this is something that can engage people, can maintain people really engaged, and to celebrate the success and the effort people. And please, 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 last not the least, it is important to be a listening partner. It's important to be a listening leader. A manager needs to listen to other people, because it's really important to have an open door policy in place, but also listen to them, let them propose, and it's very, very important. Let's go now to the recruitment per se, and see whether what we suggest to organization. I mean, the objective need process is something that should be, very transparent and objective, based on what the program really needs. So it's important that when you have been awarded for something, a program, USAID program, it's important to, at least to go to that. What are the needs that we have? What are the staffing needs? And based on that, what are the objective for each staff? And as much as possible, we need to be transparent. And we have a comprehensive contract, meaning that the contract needs to capture all these advantages we listed before, and how a fairly process to offer this compensation also with others. But most are not, as I keep repeating this, reference check is critical. Don't engage somebody that have been, already blacklisted somewhere because of gross misconduct, or due to, for example, sexual harassment or infant abuse or something like that. You can find it in your reference check. Although it's a high level skill staff, you can't engage this kind of people working, with PEPFAR globally. So it's important that the onboarding process need to be met. The onboarding process has to do with, at the time you engage somebody in your organization, the supervisor need to work with the supervisee, at least to go through the job description again, provide detailed orientation on what we expect from him, and then the staff will be able to express himself on what support he needs from the supervisor. And based on that, we need to document it, send it to, give him the opportunity to receive the support he needs from you. And then from there, the first week is very, very critical. And then, especially for all key staff need to be appraised after 3 months, to ensure that after this orientation, to ensure that the staff can be, able to, we can find area of improvement, or we are very satisfied, and then we extend the contract for more than these 3 years. The 3 months. It's very important. So I think that this checklist of document we need to always have in archive for each position: our contract, agreement, job description, recruitment document, including the committee, the job vacancy announcement, the minute of selection, signed up by all members of the selection, making sure that the selection committee have already signed the non-conflict of interest declaration, as well as the resume of the top 2 candidates, or why not 3, depending. Because at the time you complete the recruitment process, you can see somebody who is going to can deliberately decide not to accept the offer, and you can go to the second candidate, I mean the second one. So it's important to have at least one or two or three. Why not? And make sure that the document that is required by the in-country law are also captured and archived in the filing. I think it's really important to mention why is it important for us to take time on the recruitment process. Hiring the right employees is really challenging. It's challenging and sometimes hiring a wrong employee is even worse because it's more expensive and it's time consuming. So it's really important for us to reiterate the fact that when you are being engaged in any contract or your award, have your recruitment staffing plan already, develop a recruitment planning, and also make sure that the interview is well done, interviewing the right people, so meaning that the shortlist is very sensitive, and the background check will help you to know whether what people are listed in the resume makes sense and are consistent. And also the reference check is very important to confirm the reliability of the information shared, as well as the accuracy of what people have really disclosed during the interview. But the salary history check is very important because it's kind of balance of what you're going to offer versus what the staff have received in the past. So this is very important. Let me give you one example of job description, what we usually say. You see the job description really give you the title, the grade, etc., the summary of the job. It's important to list the general responsibility and the result that you want the staff to and the expected result you want the staff to achieve in their position is really sensitive. But also the qualification has to do with the state of education, experience, training, as well as technical skill that is needed for the staff. But also this component of job duty and responsibility is very important, where you go into detail, but at least whatever you want the staff to be able to deliver. But keep in mind that the duty is important to have in this component. Make sure that you indicate that other duty that the supervisor may seek from the staff, meaning that in case you work with somebody who is strict, you will be able to not really flexible. You can handle and explain to him that okay, this is something that we mentioned in the job duty and responsibility is important. Also, the special demand is that uh, I would encourage each organization to continue to advocate for gender balance, to equal opportunity has to be listed there, making sure that women candidates are really encouraged. Things like, for example, the position is pending the availability of funds. It's so very important to put in the job vacancy announcement so that everybody has a clear understanding of this. So with regard to the terms and conditions, of employment, is very important to keep this in mind. I know in many offer you have this statement that 40% travel, etc. But it's important to also indicate where do you think the majority of his time will be placed here and the work of hours. It's important to remind that the staff is based on the performance. The position is has to do with this performance appraisal. I think that it's something that needs to be discussed even during the orientation with the staff. But recording the time and the time sheet is very sensitive. In many organizations, we can find that the timesheet is just like something that is populated like that. It's very an audit and a governance sensitive document. Timesheet is something that needs to be well and appropriately developed by the organization and adapting the project that has been followed. Flexibly work schedule is, we encourage that this happen, but it has to be listened sometime in the job description so that we and the orientation also, because sometimes you may need to have people working beyond time. But how do we manage that? How do we address that? But given the experience we have with the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw that there's sometimes staff that need to work from home, and telecommunicating is it's a way we do business as well. So how do we put this in the contract? How do we have it in our HR policy and procedure? Is very important, and each organization should adapt it based on its own experience needs as well. But let's go to the performance management per se. It's something that needs to be put in place and as a policy. In your HR policy is very critical. It's like a strategy, and it has to be done in annually basis for all staff. All staff. This has to be done, even including the board. The board need to do their own evaluation as well. The management is so this has to be included in the HR policy. The performance for those people who are not performing well, they need to be put on the performance improvement plan. The performance improvement can be renewed. Twice, like one month and then the second month in case somebody is not performing well. But sometimes it has to go, unfortunately, with a termination of the contract. But it's important to, what we encourage people to do, and basically for key staff and staff and staff, key staff and executive director, please keep in mind to use the 260-degree appraisal system. How to link the system with the training need as well, assessment. It's important to have the training at the beginning, but also when somebody has been engaged already. Let me go to this in detail a little bit on the 260-degree appraisal system. It's sometimes we call it like 360-degree feedback. Sometimes we say that, because the employee is evaluated based on the performance, but using different sources. We are not doing like one-on-one feedback between supervisor and supervisor. No. Now we are looking at different areas. Like the staff do his own self-evaluation, provide it to the manager, and manager do the manager evaluation, but also need to get feedback from subordinate and peer stakeholder feedback as well as customer feedback. All this is very critical because it helps you to know area of improvement for this staff. So it gives us also a full picture of staff strain as well as buoyancy for us to improve it instead of just do a two-way conversation, which is not really encouraging. And this is something that have been is more reliable, and we encourage you people to work on that as well. So staff annual evaluation is a key point. But it's an opportunity really to have a conversation with the staff, but also an opportunity to encourage people. It's an opportunity for the supervisor to listen to people, but also to adjust the scope of work and the job description based on anything that may comes in and may change in the organization expectation and objective. Especially for new staff, it's critical to do that. But even for staff who have been there for long, it's important to give him new challenges so that he don't want to go out of the organization. So what are the content and the criteria that we think has also been included in staff evaluation? It's not just the result that have been delivered, but also to see the job competency, quality of work, initiative, dependency, flexibility, teamwork, and problem solving. Yes, problem solving, because why is it important? People need to innovate. People need to propose solutions. You'll be facing a lot of things. As a executive director, we want to see some other people who can help, can help. And this has to be documented in our HR policy and procedure, that these are areas we will appraise the performance of the staff. This has to be communicated to the staff at the beginning of his work, that we want to see if the model of behavior and the management of the staff based on the position. Now, there are things that are not applicable for junior staff and things that are applicable for high level staff. And it's critical also to let the staff know, inform that they will be evaluated based on also the staff and supervisee of this staff will be, feedback is very critical in his performance evaluation. So I think I like this slide because I think that it's always difficult to make sure that we really keep people in our organization. But we need to treat and to train our staff at the level that they really want to be celebrated, and to be seen as well trained, and to see that the other organization can really want to engage them. But we also want to treat them in a fair way, that you do not really let them go. I think that it's not just our HR policy has to capture this element of training development, not just as an individual, but as a culture, and ensure that we really have also included in our budget in the organization. Sometimes we have it, we think, but it's not budgeted. And how do we link the performance of the staff with the training that we provide to him? Because as you engage somebody, it's important to identify his training need. That's why we encourage the training manual the HR policy and procedure to include the establishing a training needs assessment. It's very, very important. And this helps to identify the need for each staff, but also to document the support that the organization provide to the staff to meet the expectation. I think some of the time we talk about the career. The career has to do with how do we improve others? How do we help the employee to remain motivated, to remain engaged? Career growth is something that has to be included in our HR policy and procedure. And to always listen to people so that we know what are the career goals. That's the role of the HR professional that you have in the organization. Sometimes have a one-on-one conversation, or to have a group conversation so that they can listen to others and then think about that. So I think the mechanism to enhance employee skill and knowledge is critical. We need to promote others, but also to transfer from, transferring is a little bit not from top to down, but down top approach is better to keep people motivated and to improve their morale and career satisfaction and motivation. This has to do also with productivity and and maintain the organization strong enough and to keep people on board. The code of conduct in the organization has to be included in the HR procedure manual. And people need to engage themselves to respect what have been listed in your organization. This should include code of ethics, confidentiality, and even the form that has to be a code of conflict of interest, and including even the declaration, anti-fraud policy, whistleblowing policy, staff, sexual harassment, anti-harassment policy, anti-violence, has to be included in this component chapter of code of conduct. And each staff working in the organization should sign off this as early as possible before starting working. It's not something that we need to take it. It's something that we need to take very, very seriously as we are working. We always have people who are separation is a normal process. This is something that may happen, and we need to at least make sure that we have appropriate steps that are listed in our manual. Has to do with when it has to do with resignation, termination of service, or dismissal for gross misconduct, or unfortunately, when you have to do with a reduction in force or retirement, or incompetency or death or staff. You need to know everything has to be listed there. And what do organizations offer? It's something that this is a component where we see people not signing contracts because they're afraid about what will happen, what the model of contract you offer them, and then how this will be terminated. And then separation procedure is very, very sensitive, but the checklist need to be communicated to staff at the beginning so that it's clear and transparent. He knows what he has to do in case he decides to leave the organization. What are the steps he need to do? We usually see that in some organizations, we think people are living without training, education, and everything. And unfortunately, this is a serious governance issue. Separation procedure it also has to do with exit interview. We want people to be terminated in a fairly way without legal procedures, etc. That may bring people at court level, etc. So, and also we don't want to see people who are just disappearing in the organization with all our database. I mean, the data on the computer without all the process. So the exit interview, the exit process need to be documented. It capture every step of the separation procedure. Grievance procedure is something that needs to be documented also and included in the HR procedure manual. But what we encourage people in the organization as manager is to have an open door policy, which led people to express themselves, what they are facing as challenges before this is going towards the escalation process, where we have to go at a high level. But it's important to have this open door policy. This is very, very sensitive. Disciplinary process is something that has to be, unfortunately, put in place because we are managing the people are making the organization, and sometimes we want to make sure that they know that we don't just do verbal reprimand, etc., etc. But we don't want to go to termination just for disciplinary process. But there are various steps that need to be indicated in the organization to ensure that each and everyone follow that and all the time protect the reputation of the organization, but also the donor, because it has to be done like that. It's not just the organization person. Health and safety is very, very important. How do our manual include medical insurance coverage? Do we include things like for example, what are the services we provide for mental health, counseling services, etc. I think that everything that has to be done in terms of health and safety should be documented. Why? Because although we have an HR manual and procedure, some organizations have internal regulation, which sometimes we have it there. All these things are listed there, but it's important to ensure that this use of illegal drugs or alcohol, anti-smoking environment, things like that are well documented. Even is included in the HR manual and procedure. It should be also included in internal regulation because everybody don't read, unfortunately, but it has to be also pasted if possible where needs be to keep people healthy and also safety. I will pause here and give you and see if there's any question before we move to the second part. Comment, question from your side, please.
Yeah, we have many questions already, so I'll get started. The first question here says, some organizations have adopted a no reference policy and limited the information they provide on former or current employees to confirmation of employment, dates of employment, and positions. How would you recommend for HR to navigate reference checks with such organizations and in a manner that will meet PEPFAR requirements?
Okay, for that question, I think it's very sensitive. Let's take a simple example. You don't do any reference check. What will happen? Then look at this angle, and we will see that you can engage somebody in your organization, but if you don't have, it's very. Let's see why PEPFAR put this as a key requirement for HR, because we don't want to see that. Although we are just focusing on the skill and experience, we also want to know that we engage people who respect the PEPFAR policy in terms and procedure in terms of human resources. We want to engage people who are protecting the organization and the donor role and regulation and reputation. It's really unfortunate that we discover after signing a contract that somebody have been engaged and unfortunately have been blacklisted or listed as in another organization where he works sometime being involved in sexual harassment, for example, or in fraud. That's why when somebody have been identified like that, this needs to be reported and documented. What I will advise people is that in case you have an organization that do not provide this, at least the staff have worked at least in 1 or 2 or 3 different organizations. Let's look at other organizations where he works as before we engage the staff. In case it happened that these organizations do not really allow, they have a no reference policy in place and sometimes even we ask the staff whether he allow us to contact his former employee, his former supervisor. For key staff, especially, this is non-negotiable. We need to know as key staff where he works before. At least he should list at least 5 people. One, the supervisor, or one or a colleague, and 2 supervisors, and other people are not in the last organization where he works. He has to share with us this in his resume when we are really happy to work with him. It's a key step. It's very sensitive, and I will encourage the organization to see options of contacting other organizations that allow this reference policy in terms of before engaging the staff. Over.
Thank you, Mesmi. The next question is about timesheets. It says, in terms of timesheets, it seems as if there is a drawback on entering the actual hours worked, since our projects are high-paced and most of the time staff work beyond the stipulated time. How do we manage this as HR practitioners?
It's a good question. I think after our work need to be documented, but we need also to make sure that for those who are working after work, the organization should have to include in their HR policy a statement which address this first in the HR manual. What I would suggest, for example, would be to have in the HR a statement how to document first, how to document the extra hour, and how this extra hour work speak to the objective of the project, and as well as the and ensure that after hour also have nothing to do with the safety of the staff. Don't allow people working in on unrest and on a safe environment. This is not allowable. But at least if the work that is done beyond, this needs to be documented first. And this has to be also in line with your internal HR policy or procedure. Last not the least, this has to be compensated. How this is compensated? You can have option one is the 13 months. It's possible based on the budget that you have. It's something that you can also discuss and then address on the friends and benefit if possible. You should have some funds for that. But at least first step is to document. Secondly is to have it already indicated in the HR policy. And third is to see which borderline can support this, and I think that can be addressed. But then it needs to be also in some cases based on the award. In some cases, it has to be negotiated with the AOR or the AOR to keep them informed about this before it's applicable. Over.
Thank you, Mesmi. We have another question about timesheets. It says, is there a standard under PEPFAR for the timesheet, especially if co-shared with other grants? For example, like a manager or headquarters or back office staff, if people are funded by more than one grant?
I think it's a very good question. I don't have experience. I have experience of a lot of timesheet that can be used in co-share. But I think it's very sensitive. As far as you know that you are not going beyond the 100% LOE, please don't go beyond the 100% LOE. But in the timesheet, how this is separate between across project is something that has to. I mean, the timesheet also in this case, what I will advise is that make sure that you have a map, an LOE matrix that highlight for each project how the stuff is across project. And secondly, you don't go beyond 100%. Third point is that you have appropriate, in the timesheet, you should indicate the deliverable per project so that we have, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of, there's a version you can also develop yourself to document it, but it has to be in line with the LOE matrix. Make sure that it should speak together.
Great. The next question is about staff who work from home. It says, how effective is the 360-degree feedback in staff who are mainly working from home, besides relying on email responses and submissions of reports or virtual meetings? How can peers input into that? So I think, feedback and performance evaluations on work from home staff.
Yes. Let me come back again on the 360-degree performance appraisal system. When you are working at home, you have things that you are going to deliver. You'll be delivering this thing either your work will be reviewed by your supervisor, and sometimes you may need to communicate with your supervisee sometime, and or your subordinate to get the feedback. Then, although you are working at home, you have already appropriate documentation of the effort you are providing, working with your supervisor, but also working with other colleagues. Even those who are communicating with vendor, etc., you can keep communicating with them. But at least when you are doing your self-evaluation, because the 260-degree appraisal system, the first step is that you are doing your self-evaluation. Then you provide all the supporting documents that help us to see the your work with the supervisor, your work with colleague, your work with your with vendor, with your subordinate, but also with customer, for example. But then it's the responsibility of your supervisor once he's reviewing it in the component that because there's a second component we call manager evaluation is part of the second step of 360-degree appraisal system. The manager will now can reach out to those vendor you're working with or customer you're working with and get their feedback. It's possible. It's also possible for him to also appraise what he have been done, he used to do with you. And then he can also get the feedback from the subordinate. So it's applicable even you are working at home. Now it's just a matter of how this feedback will be collected and compiled to your final evaluation form, performance evaluation form. Over.
Thanks, Smedley. The next question is about hiring qualified staff when there are a lot of regulations. It says, we as countries under development, we face a bunch of constraints in terms of recruitment due to the fact that requirements for certain positions in a USAID project are far from the reality in country. For example, for M&E or programmatic staff. Which strategies can we adopt to help recruit at least a mediumly qualified person or staff in those positions?
This is a good question. First and foremost, it is impossible to meet 100% of staff skill required for one position. It's not possible. In the market, you will not find it. What you find is just, some like 60% of what you're expecting. You can meet that in the market. It's not because of the donor requirement. It's just because of the position and the skill that we expect. And then in the local level, you cannot probably find somebody who has all this, but at least you can have somebody like 60% or 65% of the requirement. Then once you have done it, it's somebody who can engage. But to engage the staff, you need first and foremost to complete the training assessment for the staff. The training need assessment for the staff, where we identify area of improvement and identify also the resource that you are going to provide and the coaching you need to provide to the staff to meet the expectation, the unmet expectation that you have already identified. That means the 40% remaining or the 30% or the 35% remaining gaps that you identify for this staff. We can't create new words and bring people in this position. It's a very high level staff is very difficult to find. True, but as soon as you have somebody who's meeting like 65% or 60%, your role and responsibility is to ensure that you complete and develop a training need assessment for this staff and provide all the support needed so that he can leverage his skill and then maybe meet what he has to do. Sometimes it has to do with like 1 month coaching, to extend his skill. But the basic should be at least met. Over.
Great. The next question is about succession plans. It says, do you mind explaining about how a succession plan might be made?
Yes. When we call succession plan, for example, in your HR policy and manual, in some organization you only have one. When you are doing your hiring process, just capture the candidate one without a possibility to consider the second or the third candidate. Then, in this case, as you are continuing as you are progressing in the hiring process, maybe at the time you want to offer this position to the first candidate, he's no longer interested or no longer involved, or sometimes he's not even available. Then what will be your plan? The plan will be to have a replacement plan for that position. when we are talking about now association per se, it has to do also with the time where we engage somebody as a staff, and then key staff, and then you have somebody else who is the second candidate but have not received the offer. At the time you are completing the first 3 months of this key staff, you see that it's not performing well. Then you go through the performance improvement plan for 1 month and second month, and then decide to stop the contract. Your HR policy should allow you to consider the second candidate. But this is not, if it's not listed, then you don't have any succession plan. You have any option. And this is what we are referring when we are talking about these 2 aspects need to be documented in your HR policy. Then we know that anytime you hire a key staff, you have at least 1 or 2 backup that could be considered as to replace the staff who is no longer there or who decide to terminate. And sometimes you have somebody work for 1 year or 6 months with you as a key staff and find new job elsewhere, and then he has to go. What is recommended that you can at some point, based on the program, at some point you may need to reopen, but internally maybe within the 2 other candidates have been already shortlisted before. Then you move the process quickly. That's the kind of the third aspect of the association plan on HR policy.
Great.
Hello?
The next question is about salary expectations. The salary expectation can be considered a critical question that can disqualify a candidate if the expectation is high. What do you do in that state?
That question opens us to the second part of our discussion, and then I hope that the participant will have answer to that. It's a serious concern. I do believe that. And ASAP did this review of salary across some organization, and then we see we've noticed that sometimes compensation and benefit are missing in a lot of local organization to remain competitive in the market. And we keep informing the local partner that it's important to review the salary, to conduct a salary survey every 2 years. It's important to document it, to see the trends, and this will be used for any time you want to negotiate with the donor and see that. But without this salary survey, unfortunately, salary survey report is difficult to argue and to support your decision to increase people's salary. But the survey was really, to see more of what is happening in the local market, what's happening. Based on that, we had to discuss the compensation, the benefit, and within the organization. But we did this in a lot of countries, and you see here that very few some organizations offer medical coverage for staff, some communication allowance, sometimes offer medical coverage for family members. And sometimes they think about, they consider travel allowance, but very few are starting considering the 3rd month check and leave allowance, housing allowance, meals allowance, and and death insurance for staff, or holiday allowance or severance pay. Very few. And this is a survey that we conducted to in many countries and to see what are the benefits. And finally, it is clear that some local partners have salary scale in place, but some do not. Second finding is that even the job description of some staff are missing in some organizations, and the benefit differ from one organization to another. Sometimes they offer, but almost all local partners are below the market 23 percentile the majority of the position. And I want to highlight the fact that this is something that can be addressed if we conduct the salary survey at least twice every 2 months, and then document it, but and use the report of this salary survey to discuss with donors when it comes to negotiation. And unfortunately, these three aspects of paying people below 23, 25 percentage, there's very they are unable to attract and retain key staff. People are looking for more profit, especially when even compensation and benefit are not even included. Um, um, the ASAP observed that local partners have really serious challenges to remain competitive and to in the market, and also to retain key staff members compared to international organizations where salary are better, and they are very, very attractive in offering more benefit. So this represent a key risk for local partners. And that's why we ASAP carry out this salary survey to document the risk that we think at ASAP needs your attention as local partners. So the salary survey objective was to document salary scale for USAID local partner, to compare salary with the market value for each partner, and create profile, as well as summarize within the local partner what's the salary compared to the market value. These have been conducted we engage 24 local partners in 10 countries in 2021, and the results are shown as in Cote d'Ivoire, for example, where we did this in 11 local partners. You will see in this second column that what is actually the monthly salary for chief of party, executive director, technical program director, monitor and evaluation, means, and the finance is, means and finance manager, you see, is still below the 25% of the market data that is paid to this staff. And when you look at this here, this third column, you see that when you go to the 25% of market data, it's even far. And this is what the international organizations are offering actually in this fourth column. When you look at what is happening in Mozambique, it's even similar. You see executive director, technical director, a finance and main manager, program manager, meals, and other are still below 25% of the market data paid if you consider offer, the minimum, you see that we are still far offer, and this is a really key position. The same figure also seen here in Kenya is even pretty better in Kenya, where people the situation is slightly better there, but it's still below 35% of the market data. As a summary, when you look at the findings and the result of this salary survey, ASA found that for key staff grade 9 to 11, like program director, chief of party, technical director, finance, HR, meals, chief of party, deputy chief of party, executive director, you see that 70% of them are really below 25% of market data. Which are compared to international organizations who are paying above 50%. And then the same situation also is the staff like the accountant, procurement officer, ground officer, and field worker. You see that 55% of them are still below the 25% of the market data. This is the same situation we found in for cleaner. I mean the junior staff cleaner, maintenance, and admin assistant, data clerk, the same situation. So the key take home here is that the majority of international organizations contributes to setting a high percentage, and people are paying above 50%, while the local organizations are below 25%. The salary scale is not routinely updated by local partner, and this we really encourage them to do it at least twice every 2 years. And the risk is that there's a high risk of not be attracting and retaining sales staff or technical staff in the organization. And we know that USAID is willing to see this documented, and this should be part of the task for leadership and governance team for each AIP to start discussing these challenges based on the finding of their own salary findings. So how can we be attractive? I mean, let's say that we need to practice what we preach. We need to also to standardize our practice in the country and to have a comprehensive policy, HR policy document. This HR policy document should be developed in each local partner organization, which capture whatever we have discussed before. And this is a key step. Secondly, we need to standardize the practice, and also to make sure that what is included in our HR manual, we really apply it. Do we apply anti-fraud policy? Do we apply anti-harassment policy? How this is visualized in the organization, etc., etc. And also we need to observe and notice everything that change in the market as well before we move to discussion. I think that it's very important to have our HR policy manual, which is also in compliance with the labor law. We should not be having things that are not, if it allowable in the country. So that's why HR professional that you engage in our organization should know the local, the HR, the labor law in the country, so that it should be in line also with the organization mission and vision, but also having in place something that really speak to and focus on the performance, improving staffing, career growth, etc., etc. But I mean, it's not something that should be fixed. It's something that needs to sometimes be reviewed and amended, because it's a document based on, there are new laws and regulations that may appear in the organization, but also there are things that the donor may seek from you to be flexible and to integrate it as far as it goes to the labor law also for a requirement. So I'll pause here before we move to the last part of our component. If there's any question. Comment, please.
Yes. The next question we have here. Organizations, oh, sorry, wrong one. It says, what is the best treatment for staff who leave before the end of a project? Are they entitled to severance pay? The HR policy only supports severance for staff who have been laid off.
Okay. I mean, this depends on what you have included in your local your HR policy. Everything you have to apply should be included in your HR policy and should be in line with the labor law regulation. In some countries, even different. In some countries like GRC Cote d'Ivoire, DRC Cote d'Ivoire, you have, even in some countries like West and Central Africa, they are more like convention collective. There's a kind of internal principle that they are using when it comes to severance. But in some organizations, sometimes they don't provide severance. But then, if the law, the labor law, recommend that severance be paid, I think why not? We should be we should focus on goodwill. Goodwill, how give opportunity to people that are terminating to receive that goodwill. Why not? So, but then it depends on the local regulation. It depends on the availability of fund. It depends also, and that's why you need to capture it when you are developing your product or your budget, to ensure that at least in the friends and benefit budget line, you have this already included based on the staff that you have and the percentage that is actually required by the labor law. You can capture it in that budget line so that you can navigate and address when it comes to early termination. But then this early termination have to be very careful. We need to be careful. It has to do also with what is stated in the contract that you sign with this staff. If the contract says, for example, the staff should have like 3-month notification to the supervisor, to the employee before the employer before it takes effect, then fine. You have to really follow all the separation checklists that you have put in place in your organization. People have been oriented for that. You need to follow that in case he leave before the end of the project. But then, this first step. Secondly, based on the labor law and the availability of funds, you have to make a decision. This and priority should be given to the labor law. Over.
Great. The next question is, how can we approach USAID to support in the payment of indemnity in cases of separation or dismissal of an employee, intense legal action, and some point to the court rule in his or their favor? It's a little bit hard to understand, but I think,
but I think,
yeah, I think you get the kind of gist of the question.
Yeah, I think that's why we have this webinar. We don't want to have USAID engage in anything that has to do with legal or court. We don't want that. We want the organization to protect the donor, to protect the reputation of the donor and their own reputation. That's why we need to go to have a separation checklist available. People need to sign off that they understood, they have a clear understanding of the various steps, but also they commit to sign. But then it comes to gross misconduct, termination. No goodwill, nothing has to be paid for him. It's done. But then sometimes based on the law, sometimes they say, although it's gross misconduct, if you have evidence of gross misconduct, I think that in many countries, the staff do not receive anything. But then, for example, as I rightly said, when you are developing your budget, and you have, for example, 33 staff that you want to hire, there's a kind of HR calculation that we need to do to incorporate in your budget line friends and benefit budget line. You should consider some fund that you will add there to ensure that you can manage the separation process, the termination process of each staff. But then there's no additional fund that USAID will add in the budget that have been approved. There's no additional fund. I mean, you all know that when you have an award, whatever award you sign, there's a fix in terms of the amount, the period, the targets. There are 5 pillars that you cannot change. The project period, starting date, ending date, the total amount. Everything that has well spelled in the awards that you sign. So don't expect additional fund or another mechanism that will engage USAID to add fund for any court issue where you engage yourself while you are managing the fund. So make sure that you have enough. Make sure that you're managing your staff appropriately. Make sure that this HR policy is well documented. I have approved by your board team. Make sure that it has been signed off and legally approved by the labor inspector in your country. And then make sure that when you document any issue of gross misconduct or fraud or harassment, etc., you have to terminate somebody's contract, it should be terminated without any compensation. But then for staff that require compensation, you should already include this in your budget when you develop your budget under French and benefit. Over.
Okay, the next question is, how do you approach flex time post-COVID, and what are the circumstances that would lead to adopting this approach? I would imagine the workplace, yeah.
Okay, I don't get that one.
I think it's like, how do you approach people working from home or remotely or versus working in an office post-COVID? How do you manage expectations or adopting a hybrid approach?
I don't know whether it should be personal or something that I experience or something that I recommend, but basically, working from home and working at the office has to be well described in the job description, the job vacancy number you launch. Job description should specify whether this position is like 50% home, 50% at the office. If it's 100% home, it'll be remote. It's clear. It's like highlighted there. Then, if, for example, you have to do with a position where it should be at office, there's a separate treatment for this contract. But then my personal experience is that working from home for some people is more productive, but everything has to be documented. Everything you're doing home, you have minutes of online working session, online support, whatever you develop, this thing has to be documented and archived. And then when you're providing your timesheet in a monthly basis, you now attach all the supporting documents corresponding to what you deliver before you get paid. But then at home, at the office level, although you're working at office, you also have to do the same thing, meaning documenting whatever we did. But also there in this contract, you need to have like an office time sheet where people sign off when they are coming in and when they are leaving the office, which is different. Now, although you're working from home, based on the volume and what you deliver, we can appraise and then decide that, for example, you did this activity, how long it took to do. Then in the timesheet, it should be more detailed. While you're doing from the office, it doesn't require that much, this level of detail because we know you are at the office. But personally, for those who are working from home, I can assure you that they have to provide more detail on anything that they're doing and the time they are spending preparing meeting, conducting meeting minutes, and then put in how many time they spend there, and then compared to somebody who's in the office, you just have the attendance sheet of the meeting. That's all. So I think it's more like to be in the office than on Woody. But in terms of coverage, in terms of the strength, I think that it's a kind of balancing based on the objective of your project. I think and working from remotely is something that needs to be included even for people who are working from office because they have meeting with people on the field, everything. Okay.
Great. It says, the next question says, how can we change the mindset of most local LIPs workforce handling in terms of considering human resources as an organizational liability? Organizations don't consider their employees, rather only their business.
Yeah, I don't get that. Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's like, what are suggestions in terms of changing the mindset about the importance and significance of human resources as
Yes.
an organizational liability?
Yes, that's a very, very sensitive question. I mean, it's a more than a comment. I would just add my voice on what the participant said. In the beginning of this session, we said there's no result without resources, human resources. There's no result without people. People make the organization. So regardless whatever you want to do, you need people. You need people trained. We need people engaged. We need people oriented. You need people who are committed to deliver the work. You need to support them. You need to create a working environment. Then that's why the mindset should get started at the leadership level. The leader and the owner of the organization should know that they should not do everything. They should be able to share their responsibility. They need to be able to delegate sometimes. They need to be transparent. They need to empower and inspire other people. They need to be leader that inspire and the leader that allow others to express themselves and to build their career. They should be the leader that help other people as local organization to think beyond the contract that have been signed, to think that what they deliver need to be known and they need to celebrate the success of people that are working with them. So at the leadership level is where effort needs to be done, but not just to 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 say what they need to practice what they preach. They need to practice what is documented. They need to also acknowledge the limit they themselves as human beings can have, and then they seek support from others. And based on that strong leadership, they should be able to bring people up, and we should change. This is the way we can change our mindset as local partner and present ourselves as appropriate leaders, appropriate manager, and deliver the work that is expected. We don't have to just keep focusing on the result and the impact. But we know to get this result, we need to engage people. Otherwise, why are we committed to do things with people that we don't treat well? What's the quality of work that we're going to have? How can we bring performance if we don't consider the most important resources that we need to deliver the work, which is human resources? I'll pause here and then maybe move to the next step, and then we'll take a last round of questions after. Does that work?
Sure. Yes.
So how do we move to path to primary? I think that the question that we just tried, the last question, really speak to that. How do we move? How do we change our mindset? How can we consider ourselves as a good practitioner for human resources? How can we institutionalize this? Who can take the lead? Who can do that? I think that the organization is really what it says, that we want to maintain productivity organization. But sometimes we want people with high level skill and experience, sometimes we don't find them. And sometimes we want unfortunately, because we don't find them, we just hire people with lack of skill. And sometimes and finally we have the wrong staff at the not appropriate position, and then we have what we have, which is unfortunately sometimes we have way to handle performance improvement. At the end, you'll be time consuming, and then sometimes we don't have the result that we're expecting. I think it is an opportunity for local partners to reconsider how to provide a little opportunity for staff to get trained and to build their skill. And what are the resources we provide to this staff to get trained? How do we encourage them to get trained? How many staff in local partner at the end of, I mean, in 1 year time can provide like two different certificate that he conducted or remote training on this domain. Although I'm in HR, I've been trained on staff on the 260-degree appraisal system. How many people have been trained for that? So unfortunately, local partner sometimes engage on train human resources individual to manage people. This is the worst case. Just because we want to fill a position, unfortunately, it happen sometime. So I think all this sometimes also maybe can be due to the fact that there's a tight budget and we don't have enough resources to engage a high level human resources professional who may be costly to engage, and then it's something that maybe it happened. But we need to reconsider the fact that as I've observed in many of our new post assessment and reassessment, sometimes we observe that there's a lack of basic element of some such as job description, compensation, salary or benefit structure, staff development plan, budget, annual performance evaluation, and report. Most of the things are not account. Sometimes it's done but not documented, and sometimes we don't even have the tools that it is used. So um, I think it's important that we keep notice that IntraHealth International have, with its consortium partner, have provided we support with PEPFAR an initiative to develop this an HR training manual that is available in our document. Please feel free to go into our website and then upload this form, this training manual, and then use that training now to strengthen your human resources policy, because it has to. The target audience are mostly executive director, board chairperson, manager, HR manager, and officer. Please do not hesitate to go into that and get that interesting, important training resources. But we will still keep encouraging local partners to consider reviewing and updating the human resources policy and procedure manual based on the results that I just shared with you. But keep in mind that the recruitment process and how it is recorded is very important. Keep in mind about the compensation and benefit, because this will help to at least be attractive once the payroll vis-a-vis level of effort, the performance management, how this is done, what are the policy, the improvement plan, how this is archived in the organization, who is in charge of doing it based on the organization chart, and the human resource information system. Is it something that you can pilot, or is it something that you can put in place so that people automatically can fill out the timesheet in the weekly basis? At the end of the month, it generates a total the monthly timesheet. It's something that you can do. Maybe if every week people can decide what on Friday populate online a timesheet that demonstrate what they provided as what they completed, what they achieved, and based on that, they can use it to populate the monthly reward, which is also reliable and improve and show that you are interesting to pay people that really deliver the work. We also address the question that we have between the on-site and remote staff. I mean, staff that are working at home and those who are working at the office. I think it's important to keep this staff development. Please, there's a lot of tools on training and need assessment. There's a lot of version. On staff development plan or talent management and promotion. Go to it in our training manual. You'll find those example, and then you use that now to see how you can adapt it in your organization, human resources policy and training and procedure manual. This manual also help us to capture also the staff engagement. What is it about in terms of communication talent, onboarding, engaging initiative, how to bring people, and maintain people committed to the organization. Once people are no longer committed, usually, if although they get paid correctly, sometimes sometimes not just salary. Sometimes people need to to be listened, they need to express themselves and remain engaged. And then there's a problem of separation. We provide different type of separation and resignation and interview approaches in this training manner that we can use and adapt, and as well as data protection is very, very important. In human resources, there's no a lot of staff are ending without sharing their computer. Sometimes they don't have any kind of backup policy in the organization, but it's the responsibility of each individual in his position to upload his data and archive his data, because data protection is a key element for USAID funding project. It has to be available for after even a project 5, 10 years sometimes, right? So it's a very important. It's important that the human resources policy capture this data protection area, but also diversity, equality, and inclusion. We need to be open with new changes and new approaches, and people. We need to be gender balanced. We need to be inclusive as much as possible. We need to, have this written, because in the organization, diversity, equality, inclusion, gender balance should be area that we want to see in your HR manual. These are some other resources that you will find in this training HR training manual that ASAP IntraHealth International are providing with support with USAID. You have a kind of template of reference check, employment agreement template, onboarding checklist, which have different steps that you have to conduct and to go through them to meet the expectation, and make sure that when you finalize the onboarding checklist, please, there's always onboarding report where people have to sign that I've been oriented, I understand everything what is in the, then if you have to terminate the contract of this stuff, there's no reason we can say I have not been oriented, I have not been and they don't complete the onboarding process. So you have also leave our application form for you and the performance appraisal form for you as well. The interview form, the separation flow chart, as well as other interesting tools that you have there, like confidentiality and non-disclosure tools, conflict of interest form. There are a lot of things that are available for you to continue use them as you are updating your HR manual. And please don't keep the HR manual policy as you already updated based on this HR training manual I've sent to you. I spoke to you, but also make sure that this training manual, this document, help you to upload your own HR policy, but also make sure that this own HR policy is fully used, applicable, and also apply in your organization in a day-to-day basis. It has to do with a lot of resources. It has to do it in terms of time, but also to assign people in your organization to take the lead for each domain. It's a long process, and I do believe that it's required that you, as HR, being committed to strengthen your organization and remain productive and performance and deliver a high quality standard and goals and objectives that you agree and committed with the USAID. And I do believe that it's a long-term process, but we are sure that with the resource that we are providing to you, we can be able to upload it and make it applicable in your organization. I'll pause here, and then maybe if there's any other question, I'll be willing to provide a comment and answer. Melissa?
Yeah, we have several questions here. The first is quite a specific question for this particular participant, but it says, we have an employee who has used his leave of absence days and further requires a month of extension. Our staff handbook states that employees can only take a maximum of 10 days unpaid leave per year. Please advise. What would you do in that situation?
I think in that situation, we need to apply the labor law. Is better. What the labor law says in this case, in your context, in your country, to avoid any court investigation and issue. I will advise you to apply only the labor law in that case. Over.
Great. The next question says, reference checks are sometimes unrealistic, especially when you fall into the hands of biased supervisors who don't like you. How can employers go beyond such unhealthy background checks to ensure fairness?
Yes. I think that there's no an obligation that you just use your immediate supervisor. What I'm saying is that for key staff, we need that what we support, what we advise to during the reference check is that the candidate should at least list two supervisors, he himself. And you usually ask to the candidate, do you allow us to contact your supervisor? He can say no, no problem, no problem. We can reach out to the subordinate. We can reach out to colleagues. But the candidate can say, I don't want you to contact my supervisor, my colleague, or my subordinate. It means there's a problem. But at least if he don't want supervisor to be contacted, we should respect that. But at least he should also explain why he don't want that. Because sometimes the supervisor can have specific issue that they want to they want to tell us, and they don't want the supervisor to be informed. But for example, if you have been dismissed in the one organization for gross misconduct, at least you can hide this information from the supervisor, from the subordinate, from the colleague. Somebody will tell us. That's why the reference check should happen. But you can consider at least for key staff, there's 5 people that you list, but we can contact 3 people. If one highlighted to us serious concern, we need to do a pause before we continue with this candidate. This is my advice. Over.
Great. The next question says, is 360-degree performance appraisal effective for small or developing organizations? I think it requires more time and resources to train different raters on how to rate one employee. So would it be effective in smaller settings?
I think it's applicable even with an organization with 10 staff. It's applicable. The 360 has to do with one, we need to feed the staff himself. He's doing a self-evaluation, right? And then he provides his feedback to his supervisor that this is what I did. It's a kind of, we want to see where this guy is really fair for himself. He's honest. We want to see whether his behavior, we want to appraise it. It should be document what he did, challenges he faced, and then we said to the supervisor, the manager also do his own feedback on the same form. And in the last part of the form, the manager should reach out to people around the staff, like subordinate, at least one. People are using, in contact with them, either is a customer or a provider or a beneficiary at the field level, something like that. What do you think about this? That's all. So it's applicable even for small organization. Even challenging for big organization. For small, it's easy to do and it's good. And it's the most reliable approach to appraise staff performance, because one-on-one is just two-way evaluation. So I don't like you, then I'll say you are not doing well, which is nonsense. Maybe it's just because I don't want to work with you. It may happen like that. Then the supervisor will say he's not performing well, which is unfair, unfortunately. That's why this method, this approach is not fair. We prefer 360 degrees appraisal system. Over.
Great. Says, do you have an example of an employee handbook or a code of conduct. I think you showed that in the last slide, the resources slide, that we're gonna attach. Is that right?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So we'll attach this slide with these links on the ASAP resources website.
Okay.
The next question says, what is the practice for paying severance? Is it at the end of the project, or staff can be paid severance if the employee decides to leave after serving for a number of years?
Good question. My suggestion is the end of the project because you don't know what problem will happen. So you better pay goodwill to everybody when the project is ending, meaning you are celebrating success. In some organizations, they start using this budget line on the 13th month, and then they start paying at the end. They don't have enough resources to pay severance and goodwill for everybody, you know. So it's advisable to pay at the end. Then you push people, you know, you can't people continue to do the good work we are doing, but at least send them letter for acknowledging the effort, the success, and then encourage them. But keep this at the end, okay? That's what I would advise.
Great. Oh, we already did this question. And I think that's all the questions we have. The remaining 2 questions are about where to find these resources. So let me just send this link in the chat. You'll be able to find a recording of today's presentation as well as the presentation slides that includes the useful resources links that Mesme had showed at the ASAP resources website later on today, Eastern Standard Time, tomorrow for those of you who it's already the end of your workday. So feel free to look at that website, and it will show as the most recent listing starting tomorrow. So that's where you'll be able to find all of these resources. Does anyone have any additional questions that they'd like Mesme to answer? If not, Mesme, do you have any closing statements?
First, are you going to open camera for picture or we leave it there?
No, not for the webinar.
Okay. So
Yeah,
my last word is just that I will encourage each and everyone to go to ASAP website to upload this HR training manual and see that first. Please update your HR policy and procedure to cap based on what you find there. And also keep in mind that the salary survey can be conducted twice every 2 years. It's good to allow the leadership and team to think how to discuss and encourage conversation with the donor. And I do believe that we'll meet soon for any other session. Thank you for the time. Thank you.
excellent. Thank you everyone for joining us. Again, we have many resources and additional webinars upcoming. So please feel free to join us again for future webinars. Thank you for your participation and attention, and for PEPFAR and USAID for continuing to fund these webinars. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.